And joining me right now is George Frangeskides, Executive Chairman of Alba Mineral Resources. George, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Justin. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, I hope you're in a comfortable chair there. We've got a lot of questions here from investors. Before we do so, I understand you've got some words to say about the passing of Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, Justin, I think it would be remiss not to mention, obviously, we're speaking at a difficult time with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, and we, all of us at Alba, pass our sincere condolences on to the royal family. She's obviously had a massive influence and a calm authority over the country for 70 years through good and bad times, and we have a very, very small part in the history of the royal family with our custodianship of the Clogau gold mine. And so we, as I say, just really wanted to pass our sincere condolences on to the members of the royal family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people would echo the sentiments because it's very strange at the moment. Like I say, it has been a stabling sort of always omnipresent almost force of the Queen, and now not being here, so it's very odd. But yeah, thanks for that, George. Okay, let's get into some questions from investors here. First of all, have Alba started to put together any plans for commercialization of Welsh gold? If they have, please can you give an idea of what that may look like?
Sure, of course we have, and we've mentioned it in the past, in passing, not detailed, of course. Focus is on getting sufficient quantities of gold to reopen the mine. But obviously, in conjunction with that, we've been working on our key revenue streams as we see it, which are number one, premium bespoke Welsh jewellery. If you look at Scott Gold, they're a peer. I don't see them as a competitor because it's Scottish Gold, but they're certainly a peer, and they have done a really nice job of partnering with a high-end jeweller, using some expensive items, which I note recently when I looked at their website, all pretty much sold out. Running from 10, 20,000 pounds, even up to 70,000 pounds for an individual item. So very expensive, and not for everybody, of course. And for that reason, we're also looking at gold coins and bars, and they can run from a gram in content to an ounce, of course, or anything in between. And so there can be a range of prices there. In all cases, we're looking at premiums on the spot rate of gold, and that's why we got involved. One of the main reasons we got involved with Clogau. We see that commercial opportunity. We're not looking to just sell gold to somebody else to get that markup. We want to be involved in getting some of that markup, even if it's in partnership with a high-end brand. That's fine, as long as we are and our shareholders are benefiting from that markup. So those are the two main revenue streams. The other thing that's very important to say is provenance, chain of custody, making sure that people have assurance that it is Clogau gold, which is unique. We're the only people who are going to be producing it. So we want to make sure that people are comfortable that it is pure Clogau gold, and there are obviously ways to do that. Get involved with someone like the Royal Mint or another organisation that's similar to provide certificates of assurance, hallmarks, and all the rest of it, so that, as I say, we can then, these products will just be placed in the market and uniquely positioned to attract that premium, as I say. So those are the two main things that we look at.
Yeah. Okay. Our next question is quite a long one, so stick with me. Can an update be provided as to what became of the underground mine development plan at Clogau, notably plans to either rehabilitate or develop a new shaft further to previous RNSs that mention it? Was made in subsequent investor interviews. Costings had been sought as the anticipated cost per meter of a new shaft, but is now unclear if still intended to do this or not. If still planning on doing this, when will it be, and are you waiting on permissions from relevant authorities?
Thank you. Well, that really takes us into one of the key, or perhaps the primary target at Clogau, which is the Llechfraith shaft. So yes, of course, the sinking of a new shaft or the extension of the existing Llechfraith shaft remains a key objective for development and future production, we hope, at Clogau. But we can't do that development work until we've dewatered the Llechfraith shaft. So that remains the key driver at the moment and has been for quite some time. So I think we updated shareholders on that recently, that we were looking to submit the latest iteration of our document to inform the NRW's HRA, the Habitat Regulations Assessment, in the first part of September. So that still remains the objective, which we're working hard on as we speak. A lot of new information, updated survey work has gone into that following further discussions. It has been a long process. We are very aware of that, but we are still very confident that we will get to the end of that process and be entitled and able to dewater that shaft. So that's the key focus. Once we've dewatered it, we go in, we do work, we explore, we map, we survey, we take samples, we look at the dewatered workings in detail, and obviously from close up, which we're not able to do right now. And from there, we then develop a plan, as I say, to either sink a new shaft or extend the existing shaft. So it is definitely still a key focus, but we are very, very laser focused on getting the shaft dewatered first.
Yeah, and there's another question there saying, is there a service timetable for NRW to respond to the data GMOW will provide them in mid-September?
No, there isn't. I don't believe there is, but I'm very confident that the NRW will turn it around efficiently, and I've not got concerns in that regard. But I can't tell you a specific timeline, except that, as I say, I think that everyone is invested in turning it around and getting to an end result here.
Okay, next one. Has the planning process for the waste pit started? How long could it potentially take to get an outcome?
It has started, of course. I mean, we're doing a lot of work internally. We've also started surveying at the waste tip. The process is largely dictated by the ecological surveying. Sounds familiar. Actually, we don't think there is a lot of ecological challenges there. It is a fairly benign site. Obviously, it's open in the open, and we therefore would hope that most, if not all, of the work will be completed this side of Christmas. Most of the planning work that we need to then submit for formal planning application will be submitted this side of Christmas. There is just a question mark over one or two surveys that might have to be done because of weather and climate issues, and best time for doing surveys sort of early next year. But we're trying to see if we can push those into the side of Christmas. If that's the case, then we'll be able to submit. We'll be certainly looking to submit the planning application this side of Christmas. If it's not the case, we have to do a bit more surveying early next year, as in the first quarter of next year. Then what we do is we just do the vast bulk of the work, get it all ready this side of Christmas, slot in that final surveying work whenever it is, February ish, and then submit. So that's the plan for the timetable for the waste currently.
Okay, well, you may have covered this. It's sort of the same kind of question, but someone wants you to explain the steps necessary to facilitate the exploitation of identified areas of the waste tip.
Yeah, well, it's very similar to what we've done so far, just in terms of the processing the pits, right? The sampling of the pits that we've done so far. We've done 2 phases of sampling at the waste tip. We've dug pits and we have excavated the material. We've then sorted it on site. We've taken the fines out of it, which is as it sounds, the very fine material. We've left the rest back in, put the rest back into the pit. We've taken the fines down to the processing plant at the Leckraith mine yard and processed it. We would do something very similar here. The difference is scale. We're talking about several thousand tons of material rather than 100 tons of material. So the difference is scale, and it's because of the scale that we need to get planning, and because of the scale where we have bigger challenges, but certainly not insurmountable challenges on things like waste. So as with most mining projects, waste is one of the key issues, but we are working on some more than one solution to what we do with the waste from that processing of the pit. So that's all in hand, and as I say, it's a very similar process, but just on a much larger scale to what we've been doing so far.
Okay. Next question says, as I'm sure you're aware, I don't know if you are, but there seems to be an orchestrated online campaign by someone to discredit Alba, which has quite clearly damaged sentiment. Do you have any plans to take action against the individual or individuals concerned? And if so, what are you planning to do?
Yeah, we are aware of the campaign, Justin, and seems to be a number of fake accounts that have been put together to make it look as though there's support for a lot of nonsense that's been written by someone or more than one person, perhaps, who've got some kind of an axe to grind against the companies, not only Alba, but GreenRoc. I mean, I gather one of them was complaining about us doing, I think they said, more meaningless drilling, which I think shows you the level of insight involved here. I mean, I hope I don't need to say to most shareholders that drilling and identifying resources is a fundamental part of every hard rock mining project, that there's ever been. We're in the middle of drilling at Amitsok. It's going incredibly well. As you've seen from the last RNS, we'll be putting up an update on that at the end of the month, I hope. That's looking like it's going to give us some more substantial resource. And it's that substantial resource upgrade that we need so that we can then go forward, do scoping studies, feasibility studies, and apply for a mining license. It's that increased resource from drilling that enables us to then speak to offtake partners and show that we've got a substantial resource that they should be involved with. Same goes for Clogau. Without drilling, we would never have come up with the key targets for further development that we now have underneath the Leckfraith shaft, the extension of the Leckfraith paste chute, the main load extension. Those things would never have been discovered without drilling. So the idea that you can do mining without drilling hard rock projects is nonsense, as I say. If you don't get the fundamental importance of drilling, then I can't help you. But to answer the question, yes, we're taking steps against the individuals concerned. Nothing more to say on that subject, as you might imagine, at the moment. Until then, I would just suggest that shareholders, like we try to do with all irritants, just do your best to ignore them, but also keep writing into the websites concerned to complain about what is some at times pretty vile commentary, and not only about Alba, but about other people who are just trying to post on those boards. So do keep writing in and pushing the websites to take action. But we are aware of it, and we're dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you are a mineral exploration company, the way you explore is by drilling. How else can you do it? It's just it seems a bit of nonsense there. But anyway, next question. It's understood that the land access to Gwynfinith mine is owned by third parties. Have you looked at other ways of accessing the mine from land not owned by them? And could we potentially see a drill campaign here in the near future?
Well, look, I guess I probably don't need to convey that our focus is Clogau, right? So it sounds like the new PM with her deliver, but it is, our focus is Clogau. Now at Gwynfinith, we've done a lot of work at the regional targets around the Gwynfinith mine, but not in the old mine. There is a limit to how much we can do. It is always a big endeavour, as you've seen with Clogau, getting an old mine back into operation. We are very focused on that. Once that is, moving forward again in the right direction, as we are confident it will be, we will turn to Gwynfinith. In terms of the old mine itself, we will. It is still there, and it is still a major opportunity. In terms of access, yes, there are some issues there, but there are also some potential solutions. So, it is there as a future Clogau, if you like, but at the moment, as I say, focus is on Clogau.
Okay. Regarding the drone survey, was a license even required? Snowdonia and council informed me that no license or permit was required.
It was required. Yes, it certainly is required. Yeah.
Okay, there we are. Next one. I think UAVE Limited should take the November window. How do you know spring in 2023 will be any better?
Well, that's the advice of the professionals, that do this for a living. And UAVE are professionals, very good at what they do, and that's all they do. and they work for big organizations, small organizations, governments, and around the world. So, they've looked at it in detail. They've looked at the historical weather patterns. They know exactly what conditions they need to be able to fly their drones. In this case, it's a fixed wing drone, actually, not a rotor drone. But they know exactly what they need, as I say, to fly, and they also know what they need in order to get the best weather conditions, so that they get the best data for us. There's no point us doing this relatively expensive exercise and then coming up with data that's not fit for purpose. So we want to give ourselves the best chance to get the best, and their advice is wait. And in terms of, I think there was also some comments or questions about, why it's taken so long. Well, as with most things, unfortunately, it's not always in our control, and the Civil Aviation Authority, is, I'm sure, inundated every month, every year, every week with applications to fly various surveys. And I know that the way that they do this, every month they sit down, they look at the applications that come in. They prioritize, number one, as I understand it, emergency, governmental or emergency type surveys above anything else. And then everyone else has to fit in around that. And there is a limit. So our application was put forward on several months, and it only finally got approved at a time when their forward window was telling them you can do this in November. So unfortunately, we aren't important enough to, push ourselves up the queue. We have to wait. And November was the first date we got. So the advice is to wait to May next year to be more certain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Under Horse Hill here, has any revenue or income been received from oil sales at Horse Hill?
No, and it would be clear from our accounts if there were revenues in from Horse Hill. I think the issue with Horse Hill is obviously oil prices is at record highs, has been riding high for some time for reasons that we all know and don't need to get into here. I think that the issue with Horse Hill, which is still in production, but doesn't have the production that we would have hoped for because of the failure of the HH2 horizontal well. We still have confidence, putting aside what people may or may not think about oil in the future. It is a producing well with production rights for, I think, 25 years. So we're still confident that if someone came in and drilled another vertical or several verticals, like HH1, that they would get good production out of that. It needs somebody to do that. It's cheaper. And it is far less technically challenging to drill a vertical well, as we've shown with HH1. And we are hopeful that someone, UCOG or another party, a new farming partner, might come in and do that work and up the production levels to a point where we can see and hope to see some future revenues. So that's my hope. They've extended the right to drill, I think, or the obligation to drill has been extended out till next year. So I think the later part of next year. So there is still time to do that. So as I say, we remain hopeful that can be turned around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent stuff. And lastly, on Greenland and GreenRoc, general update, please.
Yes, Justin. Well, people have sort of got very frustrated, and not the only ones, with the time it takes to get permits in the UK. It is the UK, and that is the nature of the place that we're working. It's the same throughout Europe with mining projects. Complaints from mining companies in conferences that I've been to about the length of time, or in fact, just getting permits. In other parts of Europe at all. So we're not in that position, but things take their time in a very built up, sophisticated, first world jurisdiction. Greenland is a different kettle of fish in the sense that it is, whilst it's very Western style and a democracy, it is obviously a huge continent, if you like, and those issues are not as challenging. There are certainly environmental issues, but not as challenging. So I think that when people get frustrated with lack of progress at Alba, just remember that GreenRoc is still majority owned by Alba. And it's a very big part of the future of Alba and the future value for Alba shareholders. So don't discount all the progress that's being made at our Greenland projects. They are a significant future benefit for Alba shareholders. That's how I see it. That's how the board of Alba sees it. So work that's going on there. I'm hoping we'll put up some photos of the work that's been going on this summer. At TBS, we've been focusing really on ecological work and getting second-year baseline studies done there. Very important to get that out of the way so that we can then move on to working on the formal environmental impact assessment work that's needed there, social impact assessment, and then apply for a mining license. So we're not drilling, we're not doing exploration, we've done a lot of that. We're still waiting on the drill resource, the revised drill resource to come through from last year, but we are not waiting on that in the sense that we're doing all the environmental work, as I say, and we're doing bathymetric studies so that we know where's best to put the infrastructure, or jetty infrastructure, for the site in the future. That's also very important for our mining license application. So a lot of development type work, if you like, going on at TBS, and at Amitsot, just drill. We are still drilling. We hope to be finished by mid or second or third week in September, more likely third, and then we'll put out an update on that, and we're looking then to move to get an updated resource as soon as possible there. Drilling is going remarkably well. There's just a lot of graphite there, and it's all looking still very high grade. We don't know the grades, but we can obviously compare it to the core that's come out in the previous phase. It's looking really strong. Nice mineable widths. Looking like a phenomenal prospect there. So couldn't have gone better in that sense. And we're hopeful for really good news on those projects. So I think that just do not forget that no matter whether we're waiting on a permit at Clogite, which we're obviously very keen to get and remains a key focus for Alba, we are very heavily involved, very heavily invested in GreenRoc. We are on the board, Mark Austin and I, and we are very closely involved. In fact, Mark is out in Greenland at the moment. And we are very closely involved, as I say, in the future, in the progress and the future prospects of getting those mining projects into production. So I wanted to sort of shout out for Greenland in the Alba context. I think it's very important.
Excellent stuff, George. That's it for the questions. Thanks for taking the time, and hopefully we catch up in the not too distant future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Justin.